What we have to do is retrain our brains for pleasure. Okay. But hear me. Okay. Hear the process. Because at first it's like, okay, this sounds so simple that it can't be true. But when you are experiencing feminine burnout, the pleasure centers in your brain are turned off.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. Okay, be it babe, my overachievers, my peeps who are doing all the things, checking all the boxes, and still sometimes wondering why they don't feel awesome. I have an episode for you. In fact, I have a doctor for you. Her name is Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and she kind of blew my mind in some way. And it all makes sense. What's so cool is as soon as she explained it, it all made sense. And I think you're going to really love it. And also, as overachievers, it might be a little bit frustrating, but in a good way with lots of potential. So we're going to talk joy. We're going to talk pleasure. We're also going to talk about feminine burnout. And out of the hundreds of episodes that I've done, I've never had anyone explain it like this. And I think this is going to be one of those episodes you share with a friend and another friend and another friend. So thank you in advance for doing it. Here is Dr. Jordin Wiggins. All right, be it babe. I'm really so excited to have this conversation today with our guest, Dr. Jordin Wiggins. I'm going to be honest, I read all the things that she is doing amazing things in this world. And I was like, yes, this is a conversation we have to have. And so Dr. Jordin Wiggins, will you tell everyone who you are and what you rock at?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Lesley. I am Dr. Jordin Wiggins. I help high achieving women heal feminine burnout through pleasure.
I mean, that's just so perfect. I mean, everyone who's listening, if you're a high achieving woman, raise your hand. That's all of you. Okay. So have you spent your life avoiding burnout? Have you what led you to do this?
So many episodes of burnout. So if we want to go back, in high school, I started with pelvic pain, and I'll give you a Coles Notes of this because, like most high achieving women, I don't do things small scale. I do them big. Yeah, right. Like my wins are big, and it's like so
you are in good family. You are in great family. I already love you.
So high school, pelvic pain. I was a competitive rower doing very, very elite training, but they didn't know it was pelvic pain. So I would get this stabbing pain in between my vagina and my rectum. Can we say?
Yeah, you can say all things. Yeah, you can say.
Okay. Yeah. I should have asked beforehand.
No, you don't have to ask.
I normally do.
I think we should just say the real words because, and also what you're going to love is that we have a lot of listeners who have boys and they tell them all the things. They tell them all the things because they're like, no matter what, no matter who you are in this world, you're going to be around women. You're going to work with them. You might be married to them. You might be a parent to one. So you got to know. So you can use all the words.
Okay. Love. We will use all the vocabulary and we'll hopefully add to some vocabulary too, because I have my own glossary of terms. Okay. So stabbing pelvic pain would take my breath away. And I am a tough person, not really neurotypical, ADHD, I can ignore pain quite easily, forget about it. And this was bad. So I ended up in the ER a couple times, sent to all different specialists. No one could figure out what the pain was. And they couldn't see it on imaging. Nothing showed in my blood work. So they were basically like, well, this must be in your head. Offered me antidepressants, antipsychotics.
Right.
Okay. And I knew the pain wasn't in my head. I'm not a person that wants to be sick. I don't enjoy being sick, being slowed down by any stretch of the imagination. But I felt very let down and very alone during that experience. Fast forward a few more years when I was doing my pre-med degree, first year of my pre-med degree, went on birth control, and I had my period 3 weeks out of the month. And
it's like the opposite of what should happen with birth control.
Right? So it's bleeding for 3 weeks and not bleeding for 1 week. So aside from being very iron deficient, depressed, all the things, because the solution was, well, just try a different pill. Just try a different pill. Anyways, all of these times led me to dark places, feeling alone, feeling unsupported, not believed. And my thought was, well, I'm going to become a doctor to help figure this out for women.
Yeah.
So help solve the problems. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that conventional medicine didn't have the answers that I was seeking because of those experiences, that's when I went into naturopathic medicine. So 2 degrees, 8 years of post-secondary education later, I opened a women's health clinic and loved it, crushed it, helped so many women, 2,000 actually.
Wow.
So did that for 10 years and hit another burnout personally. And what was interesting with this one is this one was reflected with my patients at the time. So those first 2, my pelvic pain and the hormone issues with birth control, I kind of like suffered in silence and was quietly reading research articles. And I felt like something was wrong with me, right? Then this was a different level. So I'd achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, that I set out to achieve. I had my thriving business. I had my house. I had my dream car. And I was not happy. I was like, is this it? There was something so deeply missing. And the cognitive dissonance of it, for years, that was my goal.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, I was doing it, but not actually feeling happy. So there was that mental part of it, which there is a medical term for it.
Oh.
And I wrote a book about this.
Stop.
So
I called it like an expectation hangover, but what's the medical term?
So it's anhedonia, and it's the inability to feel pleasure and joy. And it's one of the diagnostic criteria of major depressive disorder. This is what I was seeing in myself and in my patients. They were being offered antidepressant prescriptions. They're just like, I don't feel like myself. The things that used to make me happy don't make me happy anymore. I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's off. They didn't really have language for it. Yeah. And neither did I. And obviously the rate of antidepressant prescriptions, which no pill shaming here.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do always. But it's just the rate of antidepressant prescriptions. Women are 2 times more likely to get prescribed an antidepressant than men. And the rate has gone up 4 or 5 times since the 90s. So it's like, are we way more depressed? Are we way more depressed than men? Like, what's going on here? But something is. Yeah. Something's off. And we're feeling off.
Yeah.
So I personally think that anhedonia needs to be treated as its own thing and not be lumped in with major depressive disorder.
Right. Because I mean, like, what an interesting thing. Even in my own life, I'm doing all the things, right? And you have these moments and you're like, Emma, I don't think I'm depressed though. Like, I know that. And so you almost are afraid to tell your doctor because you're like, they're going to put me on antidepressant. I have an amazing doctor that I work with now. And she did ask, she's like, are you depressed? I said, I'm not depressed, but I don't feel like myself. And like, I feel like that's almost like what you're saying there. It's like, what an interesting thing to think about because, and not to knock, it's not like I don't want to be depressed. Like I'm trying to avoid figuring out what it is. But if it isn't depression, if it's this inability to feel pleasure and joy, that's a fascinating thing. Cause I think a lot of people have that issue and maybe it's mixed in with depression, but it might actually just be that.
Exactly. And I think sometimes it's mixed in with depression. And I've definitely had episodes of major depressive disorder, guaranteed. But this looks a little different. It feels a little different. It comes with different physical symptoms as well. So this is what I was noticing in myself. So my hair was falling out. I had adult acne. I wasn't sleeping through the night. I was waking with night sweats. And I was like 28, 29, almost what looked like perimenopausal symptoms, but should not be happening.
Right.
Crazy heavy periods, was gaining weight that was hard to get off. Like mood swings, just not myself.
Right.
Not myself at all. And then my clients were saying the same, coming to me for the same sort of cluster of issues.
Yeah.
So that's what I now call feminine burnout. And there's the mental emotional aspect, which is the anhedonia, the mood swings. We're just not as happy as we used to be. It's like something's off. I'm not like myself. It's really, and that's the other piece, is if we don't have language to put to it, when we are going to our healthcare providers, they're doing their best. And it's like, okay, well, this kind of looks like depression.
Right. Right.
So that's how we're going to approach treatment. But then I had such a massive patient base, and some of them even tried antidepressants for a time. And they're like, it didn't really work. It didn't help. Or a lot of them just said, I know I'm not depressed. It's something like this. So we have the mental, emotional stuff, the physical symptoms. And then it was also affecting my patients and myself relationally, like how we were showing up in relationship. So feeling very alone, very unsupported. Either things were not great in the bedroom, one way or the other,
right?
Where some of my patients had literally no desire, no libido, no drive whatsoever, or they had higher drive, like they were looking for that connection and their part, like mismatched libidos, one way or the other, but things were not so great in relationship as well.
And so you're seeing this in your patients, you're seeing this in yourself, and you found this diagnosis. I guess I'm going to tell you, my Lila's like, okay, tell us what we have to do though. What is the thing? Do we have to is it a pill? Is it a meditation?
So what do I do? Tell me the steps.
Do I have to twirl? What do we have to do?
So this is, I always get the initial eye roll. So go with me on this. But what we have to do is retrain our brains for pleasure. Okay. But hear me. Okay. Hear the process. Because at first it's like, okay, this sounds so simple that it can't be true. But when you are experiencing feminine burnout, the pleasure centers in your brain are turned off. They've done MRIs. This is crazy. This is a scientific fact. So we are literally focused on survival, fixing, to-do lists. Crossing items off our to-do list feels good. We feel accomplished.
Yes.
Sitting, relaxing, enjoying, that's hard to do. So my clients would talk about, I went on vacation and it took me an entire week to relax. Or I was out for a walk, or they have their self-care time, but they'll start to, I talk about it. One of my clients gave me this sort of analogy. She's like, it's kind of like old gum that I pick up and chew. If I'm able to relax or I have time to relax, I'll start to worry about something. Or we'll create a project for ourselves, like a new initiative with work, or start a home reno. The ability to truly be and receive pleasure, have a relaxed and regulated nervous system, adrenals that properly respond to stress and aren't just pumping out cortisol all day long. We can't do that when we are experiencing feminine burnout, and nor do we want to.
Right.
Because we're focusing on putting out the fires. So the one thing that we should be doing and want to focus on doing, that our body is telling us to resist that, to not do it. Don't focus on it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, because it's I guess the next question would be and how do we retrain? Because to take that person who's feels so safe in a high stress, almost perfectionist environment,
addicted to dopamine, addicted to the cortisol.
Do you like practice sitting still? Do you like sit still for 1 minute? Do you eat chocolate? Like what?
Okay. So this is where we need to do a little bit of pleasure research.
Okay.
And because like we already talked about, if we're anhedonic, the things that used to make us happy don't make us happy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And our brain is in this simple solution, check the box, move on kind of thing, which is often like the sex that a lot of my clients describe having. Like they're having it to just like say they did and move on kind of thing, get it off the to-do list and focus on something else. So, right, like we're not really present with pleasure. We're not really present with connection, but it is what we are so deeply craving at the time. So that's where we have that massive mismatch. So we need to do some research on what makes us feel good. And it's different for every person. And it's probably different for a woman experiencing feminine burnout. You know, if she's going to a Pilates class and doing her meditations, but none of it is landing.
Yeah.
Like
she does self-care. It's just not, but it's like that old gum your other client was talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, this isn't working. So we need a new approach. So it's twofold. We start to microdose our pleasure. And I say that because the pleasure centers are off. So we need to just like slowly turn up that dial to get them turned back on. And how I get people to do that is we start by brainstorming a list. So what are things that are going to make you feel good? Is it a bath? Is it sitting in silence? Is it saying no to something? Is it letting your partner take care of something for you while you relax? It could literally be anything that makes you feel good. But now, again, I'm saying this to you now, and it sounds very simple. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Here's the thing. I actually know how not simple this is because I had a somatic therapist who was like, I said, I've got this space in my day and I don't really know what to do with it. I don't have a hobby. And she said, just write down everything that you think could feel good. And then when you get to that space in your day, look at the list and just see which one of those things you want to try. And
exactly,
you guys, it was so hard because I was like, okay, so I'm going to go sit down and read a book. And I like sat there and I was like, this doesn't feel really good right now. I think I'd rather do this later. And it's just, but you have to be, it's so fucking hard to be patient to figure out what the microdose is going to be.
Exactly. But I'm so glad that you said that and you tried this because you can validate it. And I literally make my clients put a note on their phone and a pleasure block in their day. Whatever they can commit to. If it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I mean, ideally we've got like half an hour, an hour. And it's this time that you would visit the note on your phone and check out what would make me feel good right now. And I call it increasing your pleasure pulse. So 10 out of 10 is fulfilled, abundant. We call it juicy at the Pleasure Collective. Like you're just like overflowing. You're magnetic. Your energy, you're like the sun. People want to be around you. It's like warm or like honey. It's however you want to picture your own higher self fulfillment. And 0, you're like empty. Pleasure tank is empty. Not happy with yourself physically, like emotionally, just drained, got nothing left to give. So if I'm at a 2, then my goal becomes what would make me be a 3 in my pleasure time. And we're like adding.
Right. I love that. It's like what would make me a 3, not what would get me to 10. You're not going to get to a 10 if you're at a 2.
Exactly. And then we like to, because, our high achieving, all or nothing thinking brains, right? The perfectionists, which is why I did the pleasure pulse. Cause it's like, ladies, we're not going to get from a 10 to a 2. This is going to take time.
Yeah.
And if it was our businesses or if it was something else, we would totally understand and give it grace. But I did the pleasure pulse so that, we can't just be like, well, this is hard and I'm not a 10, so it didn't work. And I'm just going to shut down and say that it didn't work. Yeah. So note on the phone, block in the day and how am I going to increase my pleasure pulse? What is something that I could do that's going to make me feel good? And yes, sounds simple, but thank you for sharing your experience, because you think, okay, I'm going to read a book, but you try the book and you're like, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
And it's because we've been conditioned to focus externally, right? On others. We're not focused inward on ourselves at all, disconnected from our intuition, and the pleasure centers in our brain are off. So it takes time to get them turned back on. And now, in any moment, I can tell you exactly what I want, exactly what would feel good for me right now. But it took time and practice to hone that skill. And if I'm not doing my pleasure practices and life happens, like to think that we can be at a 10 all day, every day, unrealistic. So if life happens and I am a 2 or I am a 4, then like it's even harder for me. Like I have to work harder at it.
Right.
Because neurologically, neurochemically, I'm in survival. I'm in nervous system dysregulation. So it's harder to know what to do to feel good.
Right. Hopefully you start to notice when you go from a 10 to a 5 before you get to a 2, hopefully. But also, I heard this interesting thing because the Olympics are on while we're recording this. And this one person in the Olympics said, like, if when you're going for a goal, it always feels good, it's always achievable, your goal isn't big enough. It should also not be that every day is a bad day. So it shouldn't be like so hard every day to achieve your goal. And he also said, 1/3 of the day should be good. 1/3 of the days you should feel like you're making progress. It's awesome. 1/3 of the day should just feel like it was achievable, not like meh, like whelmed, right? Like just right there, there's nothing wrong. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just even. And then 1/3 of the days are going to feel really hard. And so the goal is to just make sure that you're in balance there and you're not tipping too far in one direction. And I think what's hard for most people is they notice the one day that they're going down and like, oh, and they excuse it. I have so much stuff going on. I just got when this happens, and then by the time that they actually acknowledge that they've gone down, they're back to a 2. And that's when it's so hard to get back up because they're going to try to go back to that 10, doing the things they're doing at a 10. But you're, like you said, you're dysregulated. So you have to actually do something really small again. You have to go back to the tiny thing.
I love it. Exactly. And that's why that concept of micro dosing, how do I just feel a little better? And I'm working with my clients, training them to know, okay, I took a hit today or the last couple of days. I'm a 5. What am I going to need to do to get back up? And recognizing it, what are those warning signs to see it coming so that we know before we're at the 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is really fascinating. So now that you saw this in your clients, you saw this in your patients, you saw it in yourself, you did some research, you started to like experience and explore, and now you've got what you're teaching. How has that been like even received among the women you're trying to help? And what are some things that you're seeing like either pushback on from people, or maybe they're just thinking like, it's too easy. It should be hard. I should have the pill. I'm missing this hormone. Like, what are you seeing?
I do get a lot of people that are like, I think it's my hormones. I think I have a hormone imbalance. Like there's wanting to explain it away to be one thing.
Yeah.
Right. That one box to check, especially when our brain is in that mode. And that's why, because I was trained and I did so much continuing education. I was flying everywhere to learn how to treat what I didn't know was feminine burnout. And yes, there is a component of hormone imbalance. Yes, there is a component of adrenal dysfunction, or if we have been stressed for a really long time, then we can have digestive issues. Like it is compounded and it is layered. However, if we are at a 5 plus. Like if our nervous systems are for the most part regulated, if we can mount a good stress response, if we're not inflamed, then we have that resiliency to handle what life throws at us without having a hormone imbalance. So to me, hormones a lot of the time are a lag indicator.
Okay.
It's an indicator that you were experiencing feminine burnout. There was other things happening well before you got to the point of hormone imbalance.
I think that's all. I probably the stomach issues as well. There's those kinds of things. They're like, okay, fine, you're not going to help me here. Now we're over here. So it's almost like there was a yellow light, slow down, and we didn't listen until it was the red. And then it's a bigger fish to fry because you've got to do. You still have. It sounds like you can take care of the hormones, you could take care of the gut, but you still have to figure out the pleasure. You still are going to have to.
And that's exactly what I was finding, and what I didn't like about what I was doing. And the treatment plans and the protocols that I was giving is women were feeling better. The digestive issues was better. The hormone issues were better, but they had to be very regimented about what they were doing. And it was so easy for them to fall back, to get back to that too. And I mean, again, I'm talking about pleasure. It's all about pleasure. To have to be so restrictive on a diet.
Yeah.
To digest well and to feel light and like
there is no joy in that. No, there's no pleasure. No.
And it was like, I'm missing something. I'm not really getting to the root here because we need to be so careful, or the hormones needed to be tweaked, or their thyroid medication needed to be tweaked. And it's just like, what was I missing?
Yeah. So, okay. So because I think the overachievers in the room have not felt pleasure in a long time. Can you explain, even like just idea wise, what are different forms of enjoying pleasure or feeling joy? Like, just in case they're like, okay, I've heard the word, but if we ask them today, like what would make them feel joy? But obviously they're going to have like very few things, or they're going to think it should be like time with their kids or sitting at a beach or something like that. So what are just some list examples that could help people find pleasure and joy? What are some things that they could do?
Yes. And I want to say, because if people are new to my work, sometimes even the word pleasure feels like repulsive or jarring.
I think it's like not even repulsive or jarring. It almost feels like selfish. I have so much to do. The dishes have to get done. The laundry has to get done. How dare I sit down and do a puzzle to feel joy right now? Or this dessert is amazing, but I got to clean before bed. I got to get to bed. So I'm not going to sit and enjoy the pleasure of the bite of ice cream.
It's part of our conditioning, right? Do first, pleasures last. Work hard, then play hard. That's how we've been conditioned. And that's what creates the recipe for feminine burnout, is that we feel like feeling good should come last, but there's always so much to do that we never get to the feeling good part. So really it's about flipping it, putting pleasure first, and you are more efficient. And when you ask people to do things for you and you are, a 5 or an 8, it's when you have more of that attractive energy. When you're at a 0 and you are asking somebody for help with something, for the dishes that need to get done so that you can do a puzzle or read, it's just it comes out sideways, when we are so burnt out. And then that's also where women get pissed, where it's like, okay, I'm doing so much, and now you're telling me I have to do more.
Yeah.
Because it's frustrating, right? So you're telling me that I have to work on myself or do, I call it plugging the holes in our pleasure tank, because the pleasure, what we're pouring in, the things that we're doing to feel good, that's one part of it. But if our container, our system, I call it a pleasure tank just for the visual, has holes poked in it, we could self-care all day long and still not feel fulfilled. We're still not raising.
Right. Because you're pouring, but it's going out through one of the holes. Yeah.
Exactly.
I got it.
Exactly. So the list of the pleasure things, and I'll let me tell you that. But that's the one piece. And then the part that's like the harder work to do is how do we plug the holes and make sure that we can maintain, I like to say a 7 so that we've got that resiliency, because life's going to happen and things are going to be hard sometimes. But then at least if we're dropping to a 5.
Yeah.
And not a 2.
Yeah.
So pleasure, and I like to look at it in 2 ways because we have that sort of negative connotation to it. We think it's about sex or bedroom. And yes, that is part of it. But there's also just like, look at kids, how happy they are, how joyful they are. Life is amazing. Little things are amazing and awe-inspiring. And it's about finding that wonder and play and things that feel good outside as well. So calling a friend. Now, also, this is where it gets deep, right? Because if you are an overachiever, you're probably overachieving in your friendships too. And you're probably the one that people go to with the problems.
Yeah.
So you're probably calling a friend that helps fill your tank, that you feel great after talking to them, not that you've just given them a therapy session and all these suggestions on how to run their business or something.
Yeah. And don't call the aunt who's negative all the time. Like, it sounds like a little ranking system has to happen. And then you can call a friend who like fills your cup. Yeah,
exactly. So you're writing in the note in your phone, like call X, like the friend that fills your cup up.
Yeah.
Movement. So people, again, we're starting small, but I love if people would enroll themselves in some type of movement class, like some type of dance. Yoga is amazing. Pilates is amazing. We know this. Getting a massage is amazing. But some type of dance class or feminine movement class, like pole dancing, a heels class, which is also I have clients that do it and they're in our group chat. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Like, it's a very out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. I'm going to get a pole in the house because, to be honest, the pole classes in Vegas are always at night. And I'm like, I'm in bed at 8:00, ladies. I need a 4:00 pole class. That's what I want. So, but it is super fun. You have it. It's a different kind of dopamine high. It's so fun. And then the heels class is like, just like having to practice walking in those heels. It's a different kind of be it till you see it. I'll tell you, it's a be it till you see it for pleasure. Those kinds of classes.
Yes. I have a pole in my house. So there you go. Grab one in yours. There's even great free online. There's so much free online, like beginner pole stuff.
Yeah.
To have it in your house.
Yeah.
But I'm personally the special kind of person. Like, I need to be held accountable to the class. I'm better at using my pole, but sometimes if I'm in burnout, I will go months without touching my pole at home. But if I sign up for a class, I will show up every time because I did,
Yeah. I think that's a good reminder. Like, if you know that you're going down to a 5 on this pleasure pulse, maybe sign up for things that hold you accountable to get you back up to that 7 so that you can do it on your own time. But yeah, it's okay to need accountability.
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally a need accountability kind of person. So there's the stuff, reading, bath, things that are going to make us feel good, slow us down. There's movement, which I highly recommend, some type of feminine movement class, dance class. And if that's too much, then anything yoga, Pilates, but not boot camp style, right? Like, generally, we're doing too much when we are experiencing burnout, because to build muscle is an inflammatory process. And if you have feminine burnout, you are already very inflamed. And that's why a lot of women are like, why can't I lose weight? I'm doing boot camps 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Well,
zone 2, ladies, come on, zone 2.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're over 40, you don't even need to do 40-minute workouts, actually. So
yes, thank you. Oh,
Leave class early. It's okay. They're not going to say anything. Show up on time, leave early. Take care of yourself. But it's very interesting, all the research that's out there for perimenopause and postmenopause to keep your cortisol down. You should be doing under 40-minute workouts.
Thank you. Like I say that on repeat.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
Too.
But I love that. I think that these are some really good things that people can like, there might even be, and if we listen, if she said anything that you're already doing, then maybe notice, like, are you doing too much, or are you needing to put on some music while you're doing, like, is there something else you can change with it? Because as the overachievers listening, there probably are going to class 7 days a week. Maybe we actually need to take 2
it's
classes.
about doing less. And what else? Doing less, and then asking yourself, how can I make this moment more pleasurable?
Yes. Oh, I love that question. That question is so good.
If you're stuck, that's what you're asking yourself. And is it, do I need fresh flowers on my desk? Do I need to light a candle and put music on while I'm making dinner?
Yes.
What little tweaks, little micro doses can we do to feel better? And then obviously there is the physical stuff as well. Like more, when you think of pleasure, what you would think of. So massages, self-pleasure, reading an erotic novel, like things like that, the more spicy types of pleasure.
There's like a whole new uptick in the romance novel world. Like that genre of books is like having a new resurgence, and it's quite amazing. So I love these. I think it's great. So if you're going to class 7 days a week and you're having this feminine burnout, take one of those classes off and try self-pleasure stuff.
Read an erotic novel.
Yeah. I think this is really exciting stuff, and we could talk about it forever. And obviously you're like the expert at it. We're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to find out people can find you, follow you, work with you. All right, Dr. Jordin Wiggins, this has been awesome. I think you may have just helped a lot of listeners go, I wonder if this is feminine burnout and not just my hormones and stress and all these things. I think that there's a lot of pondering going on. Where can people find you, follow you, work with you?
Find me on Instagram at Dr. Jordin Wiggins. My podcast, the Pleasure Principles podcast, is another great place. If you are pondering and you're like, is this me? There's a ton of amazing information there. And if you want to work with me, send me a DM on Instagram.
Perfect. Love that. That's so easy. As it should be. They're in feminine burnout, so it should be easy.
Yeah. Okay. Trust me. The simpler, the better.
All right. You actually have given us some great tips already, but just in case anyone missed it, they skipped to the end. Bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
Ask yourself, how can I make this moment more pleasurable? If you can ask yourself that multiple times a day, I guarantee you will be increasing your pleasure pulse. And the second thing is make a note in your phone of things that you can do to help microdose your pleasure. What is going to make you feel a little bit better so that when you have downtime, ideally it's scheduled downtime, scheduled pleasure breaks in your day, you're going to look at that note in your phone and you're going to do something that helps increase your pleasure pulse, helps turn on the pleasure centers in your brain.
Those are good. I love a good question. We had Gay Hendricks on our 400th episode, and he likes to do, I wonder, because the brain loves and I wonder, and I love that your question is like, I wonder, how can I make this more pleasurable? What a great thing, you guys. You'd be surprised, like I don't like to clean the house. And so when I do, I'm like, what's a podcast that would be really fun to listen to? Not stressful because I'm doing something I don't want to do. Or like if Brad's awake, I can turn on some music and I can play something. Or sometimes I throw on an Abraham Hicks, like Morning Rampage, so I think this is a really fun, easy thing that we can do just to start to enjoy the pleasurable moments in our lives. And, wow, great stuff. Dr. Jordin Wiggins, you are so amazing. Thank you so much. You guys, how are you using these tips in your life? Make sure you tag Dr. Jordin Wiggins, tag the Beit Pod, share this with us. Share this episode with a friend who needs it. I bet you probably, as you were thinking through, you might be thinking, oh, my friend, share this with them, because what an interesting thing when we can actually go, oh, it's not just my stomach and my hormones and these things. It could be those things. It also could be that they have feminine burnout, and they could actually take Jordin's words and enjoy more joy and pleasure and get the help that they need. Until next time, be it till you see it. That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day. Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network. If you want to leave us a message or a question that we might read on another episode, you can text us at +1 310 905 5534 or send a DM on Instagram at BeItPod.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell.
It is transcribed, produced, and edited by the epic team at Diseño.co.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all of our content to our website. And finally, to Meredith Root for keeping us all on point and on time.